Hi, everybody. It's Daniel Bennett here with CAI here in West Virginia, and we are doing a series on reserve study experts, specialists, and services that you can get to help your organization with doing a reserve study, which is crucial in order to have a reserve fund. Uh, in my opinion. None of the advice or things that I say are illegal uh, uh, advice or anything more than my personal opinion. But in any case, I want to welcome from Smart Property Mike Dee. I met with those folks at the our adjacent area chapter, the WMCCAI, at their convention and expo in Washington, D.C. this year, and was just amazed at some of the just new way of thinking about reserve studies. So I'll leave it at that. Mike, go ahead and do more of an introduction of yourself if I missed anything,
Yeah,
and then just go in on first the reserve study and then talk about smart property.
yeah,
Thanks.
for sure. Hey, Daniel, thanks for inviting me. It's certainly good to be here. So, Mike D, I'm with Smart Property. I've actually been with Smart Property since the beginning of the year. Have been in conversations with Damien and the team for a little while. My background, I've got 18 years experience in the property management industry. 12 of those 18, I worked with First Service Residential. I was most recently their Executive Director of Strategic Planning and Project Management. Kind of a long title, but here's why it's so important. When I saw Smart Property, I went, oh my goodness, this is incredible. I wish I had this years ago. And that's really because I was on the front lines. I was the guy that was going in and working with properties that had deferred maintenance, were struggling to figure out a financial plan. And so I went in there and had to use the tools that were presented to me. And that was typically the traditional reserve study, and I would call it static. One of the things that I'll talk about is that what we're doing is we're reimagining reserve studies in the modern HOA. That's kind of what I feel like Smart Property is doing, and that's when I really was introduced to Damien and the team. I went, wow. All he said was, imagine a reserve study that never goes out of date. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. Because the reality is, it does go out of date the moment I have it done. And although West Virginia doesn't have any laws regulating it, other states do. California, and there's others that you have to have one every year. And so that whole idea of, well, where's my reserve funding? Where's my capital planning? And so that's part of what I had to do. I had to go in and work with these boards to say, look, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the ownership to preserve and maintain the physical assets of the community. And in my 18 years, one of the things I came up with in my background is psychology and mental health and ministry. So when I came into this industry, I went, okay, I think I'm understanding some things. Here's the deal. The property management industry is an emotional industry. It is. I mean, I live in an HOA, so I get it. And when it comes to decisions made, money that needs to be saved, and how we're going to take care of everything, it can get emotional real quick and there can be tension and friction. So when it comes to how do we deal with reserving, funding, capital planning, there's a lot that goes into it. And so that's where we really came up with the living reserve study. So I don't want to get too far into it, but let me just do a little bit here. Let me start with a reality check. I'll pause and then we'll get into some questions. So the traditional
Thanks.
reserve studies, as I said, are static. They're often outdated the moment that they're delivered. They sit on a shelf and are rarely referenced. We do it once a year when we know we need to do the budget, and it's a snapshot in time. And so what we've done is we said, look, you need to interact with this data, and that's where bringing technology, bringing a cloud-based software platform that you interact with, to us is the solution.
Thanks. Um, and I think, and as you pointed out in here in West Virginia, um, it mentions reserve studies, uh, reserve funds rather.
Yep.
But what is that connection? There are some people that I've heard who will put a reserve fund together and they'll just say, back of the envelope calculations. You mentioned fiduciary responsibility. Just get into that a little bit in terms of the difference between a sort of back of the envelope
For
where
sure.
they say, yeah, sure, we'll put some money aside for repair of the roads down the line. This is our estimate. What can you say about both your system, but also just generally about the importance of uh, having a reserve study expert come in
Yeah.
and do that on site?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great question, Daniel. And that's one of the things that I think that CAI has done. They've done a lot for the industry. I mean, the industry, it's been around a while, but when you think about it in terms of age, it's really what, the last 30 years.
Mhm.
And so we've come a long ways. I think CAI really having the credentialing and the standards, industry standards. What does it take to be an RS, a reserve specialist? That's a designation that CAI is proud to have introduced and help to provide some governance, if you will, across the nation. So really, what we're talking about is the reserve specialist. It's different than the reserve funding. I Ashamedly, when I first entered the industry 18 years ago, we were doing that very thing. Like, how many components do you have? And let's get some people that can give us cost estimates. And it wasn't very regulated, and it was often not very accurate. So really, what a reserve specialist is doing is coming in and looking at all of your physical assets. And what they're doing is they're not only doing some type of a basic conditions assessment, but they're giving it a useful remaining life. So what's its typical life? So let's just say an HVAC, for example, might last 10 years. You need to replace it every 10 years. Well, the reserve specialist is going to come in and know that and then say, well, how old is it? Well, it's 8 years. So its useful remaining life is 2 years. And then what's its replacement cost value? So it's really getting down into the granular and the more details of your set years in the industry is that garbage in, garbage out. And a lot of people don't trust the reserves. They don't trust because it's just like averages of averages. So really, we've got to work hard as in an industry to make sure that we're using good data to help you make good decision. Better data leads to better decisions.
And one of the things that I also got a sense of at the conventions I've been to, where you talk with the banks and the insurance companies and all of
Yep.
these reserve specialists, reserve studies, your software fits into an ecology, so to
Yep.
speak, that includes the ability to get loans, the ability to um, get insurance, what that insurance is for, and stuff like that. Talk about your software as well as the reserve study aspect of it that is important in that ecology.
Well, I think it takes out the arbitrary. You're getting a lot more specific. So, if you've got a multi-million dollar high rise that has a all in $20 million capital total replacement value, then you've got a lot of moving parts. So if you're going to need to know what your funding is going to be, what's your financial health condition, banks look at that when you're filling out condo resale search. They look at that information. How much funding do you have? Are you 50% funded, 75 fully funded? When it comes to getting loans, they're going to ask a lot of questions about how much do you have in your reserve account, how much is needed, and so it really gives you that visibility into the key data that's going to be necessary to not only sell your property, to get a loan personally, and then as the HOA, as they need to go out and get loans, maybe to do capital projects, they're going to be scrutinized and be asked a bunch of questions as well. So that's where the reserve study comes in. It captures all that and it puts it in an organized fashion that you can look at and make decisions based off.
Thanks. Talk about HOA boards and your experience and how to talk to them about this, because
Yeah.
especially here in West Virginia, considering how things are, it's all almost all the HOAs that are in the unincorporated areas of counties here own their own roads, their private
Yeah.
roads. They have to maintain them. Um, and what do they need to know? If you're thinking in condos, there are condos here, obviously, in West Virginia, but a little bit about that understanding, especially if you have a hundred to 1,000 unit or
Yeah,
lots. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, it's a good question. So I just think what I'd say is that with increasing the state regulations and scrutiny, what we're seeing is HOAs, they need to show that they're financially responsible. But beyond compliance, what really matters is confidence. And my experience is a lot of boards just don't have confidence. So I think what our living reserve study does is it helps boards avoid special assessments. It time loans more intelligently, and we can forecast dues more responsibly. So there's this built-in documentation that meets or exceeds regulatory requirements in most states. Okay, so and when your members ask, are we okay financially? Um, you'll have more than just yes. You'll have the data to back it up. So my experience is that a lot of boards just don't have the confidence. And so what we're doing is we're trying to help them understand what is your financial health, and then what do you base that off? So if your HOA knows that it needs to do some improvements, or it has some risk, or its insurance is increasing because we've had incidents or we have deferred maintenance, this really gives you the confidence to be able to see it and make those decisions.
So that's called the master insurance policy.
Yeah.
So what type of integration points do you have with other software that HOAs might be using?
Well, it really depends. So there are some APIs with some accounting softwares, Sync, Manica, AppFolio. Many times when we come in, we're partnering with that management company. So not all HOAs are professionally managed. Some are self-managed, but those that are professionally managed, we find that that integration is really helps because the management company's been hired and they're responsible to help you fulfill and perform your fiduciary responsibility. In terms of insurance, a lot of that's held within the management company, and so the information that we get, we're going to get one of two ways. We're either going to get it from an association board, or we're going to get it from the management company in conjunction with the board. So a lot of times that integration is that we partner and integrate with management companies. That's when we really find that we're most successful.
Thanks. And I think that property management firms have their value proposition as well.
Yeah,
But thinking about the ones that are not professionally managed and have, they're just volunteers and they're doing both I like thinking these are essentially municipalities,
yeah,
especially here in West Virginia, where they are both the legislature and the
that's
executive,
correct.
and their time is limited. Is this something that's going to be easy to use for the volunteers in terms of your system? Is that something where you provide a certain level of support? What is it that if one of those types of HOAs is interested in your service, what would you say to them?
Yeah, well, I mean, having been in the industry, I can speak from that perspective that it helps you work smarter. I mean, the amount of time, and we say to management companies, property managers that are interacting with boards that look, these boards are volunteers. I mean, they don't do this for a living. They don't have all the time to do it. So I would just say if you're a community that's self-managed, um, I would say that this platform is pretty easy to pick up and to find the various ways that it's going to help you have better visibility into your financial and asset management responsibilities. And then in terms of how we support it, I mean, the software has been around for 7 years, and in terms of software, that's pretty old.
Hmm.
You know, in dog years, I'm not sure what it is, but software years, that's been around a while, and we're continuing to invest and do new iterations, and so we usually have 2 to 4 hours training up front. Depends on how much more you need. That's personalized training with your key stakeholders. The platform has unlimited users. So if you want to maybe have the whole board have access, or maybe a couple people have access, and then others you have certain permissions. that you maybe can get in and view, but you can't be an administrator and change anything.
Right.
We also have the ability to set up sandboxes. So maybe if you want to have a clone of the platform where you can get in there and run scenarios and play around, that has its capabilities. And then, and I'll show you here in a bit when we do the demo. There's actually a little icon at the bottom that you click, like most websites or most web-based, cloud-based softwares do, and it's real time. So you put a question in there, and there's interactive, and it can answer most of them, or someone will get back with you and or answer that question.
That's fantastic. And that sandboxing, I've had a question recently from a self-managed HOA about a capital improvement project. Is that like an example of something where you'd sandbox it where you're thinking of an upgrade or a new road or something like that? Is that what you're getting at in terms of sandboxing, or is it what were you referring to?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. One of the biggest ways is when it comes to financial modeling. So if we're a lot of HOAs, golf clubs and large scales have what they call aspirational, but really condos and HOAs, many times what they have in terms of common area doesn't change much. They might, when they're under developer control, add a new pool or a new tennis court, but they don't often. But there are times when the community might come together and say, "Look, we need more amenities. We would like to invest 100,000 to a quarter of a million, whatever it is, into a new walking trail." A playground. And so the sandbox, you can do it within the platform, but you could on the sandbox model that and say, okay, what's it going to cost per homeowner per month to have this addition to our physical assets, our capital planning. So yeah, you could get in there and run those scenarios and do a cost analysis, if you will.
Well, this has been fantastic. I would love to see this demo then. Go ahead.
Okay. And without further ado, let me pull it up here.
Just a reminder to everybody, this is live and we're recording it. And I'm again so grateful to Smart Property for being actually the first ones to participate in the West Virginia
Nice.
thing. So thank you, and what a great way to kick it off. So I leave
All
it to
right.
you to if you're ready to go ahead.
Okay, Daniel. So what you're seeing here, this is what we're going to call the dashboard.
Hmm.
So the dashboard essentially, it's when you log in, you see there's key insights right up here at the top. Those key insights, imagine that you're driving a car. As you're driving a car, you know what you need to see on your dashboard is what's your speedometer so you don't get a ticket. Where's your fuel level so you don't run out of gas, and maybe where's your oil pressure. So what are the key components that you're going to look at when you're driving a car? So in terms of your financial and asset management, we believe that this dashboard is capturing what you need. And that's really looking at what's in your reserve account balance first and foremost. So you see here, there's $2.2 million in the reserve account balance. Next thing you want to know is what's your annual contribution into reserves. And this is modeling 475,000. And then what's in the pipeline? What's now in this coming fiscal year? What all are we doing? So you can see, well, man, they got quite a bit. They're going to spend probably 40, 35, 40% of their total reserves in this coming year. What is that? So I come down here into the next, what's on the calendar for this year? I can see here that these are the projects that make up that $941,000. So at a glance, it really just trains me. So what we really is, we're software as a service. We're trying to help boards have better visibility into their capital components so that they can see and make decisions. And then what's your financial condition of your reserve? 39% is what this is showing. Industry standard shows you probably want to be around 70%. There's an argument is, do you need to be fully funded? What is that real magic number, that magic range? It really depends. Depends on the story of your community. Maybe you've had deferred maintenance. Maybe your community is only 5 years old. There's a lot that goes into it. So, as well as I do, a lot of the decisions these boards need to make, they're not making off spreadsheets. They're making off telling a story. They're looking at the data. And so that's what we're doing with this dashboard, this one-page dashboard, if you will. And then where's the money going? Where are the various components? You've got building envelope, maybe painting, balconies, mechanical, doors, windows, and then this feature here at the bottom. What does the future look like? Most reserve studies are used in a 30-year time frame. I've heard people say 30 years, I won't be alive in 30 years. I don't care about 30 years. And so what we like to do is say, okay, well, let's talk 10 years. Let's look at a 10-year snapshot. Or actually, let's look at 5 years. Let's really look at what's in the near term, what's in front of us. And this, just clicking a button, you saw how easy that was for me to do that. So this is what your reserve amount is. This is what's actually going to be spent. And I can see I click that blue bar right there and it comes down and tells me what's each year. Okay, I've only got 3 things in that year. Wow, this year's got a lot. And looky there, I've got the elevators we're replacing in that year. So it just, once again, dashboard gives me a snapshot. As I said, we like to say we've created the world's first one-page reserve study. Most reserve studies are anywhere between 65 to 150 pages. And this right here, this is a reserve study. So we're not just a software company, we're also a reserve specialist company. So we'll come in and we'll look at all your components and we'll put together this report, which is what most reserve specialists are going to do. And we'll give you this report if you want it. We'll print it off and put it in a 3-ring binder if you want it. But what we're thinking and what we're realizing is that people are wanting more than that. So we're trying to get away from this, notebook 3-ring binder that sits up on a shelf and collects dust. And we're saying, look, there's a better way of doing it. So with that as the backdrop, let's talk about what a reserve study is. So let me clear all the filters. This is next replacement year, and this is what a reserve study is going to look like. It's going to be inline data. So I've got my name of my component. So concrete on grade partial, category is asphalt and concrete. Its useful life was 15 years. Every 15 years, I need to do something with this component. What's its remaining life? Well, it's at 0. That's why it's in this fiscal year. What's its unit price, quantity, and then what's the total capital that I'm going to need to do this particular work? And that's $13,000. You'll see here in line as well, I've got notes that ties right to this platform. If I see this as anything, I'm saying, man, this is a repository. This keeps all of my pertinent information that's tied to that particular component. We like to say is, we treat your data as important as you would treat one of your components because your data, that information is that important. So you'll see here, this has notes. We'll combine with other garage concrete project to get better pricing, receive report in rough order of magnitude. So I get all that information that stays with the component in the platform. And I just double click into it. So you'll see here, this I'd have to go to the notebook and open it up or look at the PDF document and try to figure out where do I need to go to find that information. Here, it's just a click and I can see it. So concrete on grade, I could put pictures up here. There's a description. All my pertinent information's in here. So like I say, the useful remaining life was 0, but I had maybe my concrete contractor come out and say, and do we have to replace it this year? Can we put that off a year? And this is what a lot of boards and management companies are doing. They're looking at their spreadsheet and they're making adjustments. They got to cut and paste, and sometimes they break the formula and they got to figure out how to correct it. And I've done that so many times. So this is the importance of using software and technology. It's helping you with that reduction of errors and who did what by when. And so I'll come in here and say, look, we're going to push this out a year. I push it out a year, and what it does is it instantly changes everything. So it takes that component, instead of 2025, it puts it in 2026. That $13,000 I need in that year, it pushes it out a year. And if I'm moving things around enough, I can see the impact that I'm having on what I need financially in each independent year. So it's so much easier to make adjustments by doing it that way. Even come down here, a big thing is inflation. So who knows what's going on? You've got issues with tariffs right now. We could be in a war in the Middle East. Oil products can go up. So I can change the inflation rate. If you'll see right here, I can change it per component, or I can change it on all 120 components. I can go from a 4% to a 6%, depending on what's going on. And just changing that number re-racks all the financial commitment that I need to do my capital planning as easy as can be. Or maybe if it's a roof that's got an oil product, I can change it because I know that oil is so much more expensive. And also it's got geo mapping. So I can tag, maybe if it's 1,000 home property that's got 3 pools, and I got to keep track of where all the the irrigation control boxes are, and maybe where I've got this backflows. I can do geotagging that helps know exactly what we're talking about and where that information is. And then also it's got these notes once they get down at the bottom. So any activity that's done on this component, it captures who did that. And especially when you're talking about institutional knowledge, boards turnover, management companies turnover, property managers turnover. So this gives you that institutional knowledge and intellectual capital that stays with this component and stays with your property. Another thing is we do right off the bat is we set up your financial parameters. So is your budget annually? Do you pay once a year? Do you pay every month? Is it start in January? Is your fiscal year start in October? We set all those parameters up right in here. We'll start off with what's your current dues amount, what's your contribution amount, and this gives us that range at which we do all of our modeling off. Another big thing is looking at each one of these components that were in that fiscal year I showed you off at the beginning, Daniel, was $900,000.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you know as well as I do, or any board member that would be on this call would say, just because we have a budget, it doesn't mean we're going to do it. So the moment that I deviate from the plan, and if I'm doing my reserve study every 3 years, the moment I deviate from the plan, it's outdated and everything's changed. And so if I'm taking those components that are in that fiscal year, the moment I decide to do them, that the board said, yes, we're going to do the chiller and we're going to do that concrete work, I can then turn that into a project. And let me just show you how easy that is. Coming back here to my component list, I'll see that I've got awnings, canvas, and frame. Okay, I come in here and say, yes, we're going to do that. Right here, I just click projects, turn it into a project, and it automatically populates. And then I can start tracking all my projects. I can see it in a Gantt view. I can see it in a board view, and I can see it in list view. And that's certainly helpful for visibility. You got the property manager that's overwhelmed, the board's trying to get information. And so they're saying, what did we decide to do this year? And where
Mm-hmm.
are we with that? And so each step of the way that I am looking at these projects, you can see here, it gives you a workflow. So I can look at request for proposal. I can look at proposal review. Maybe a committee needs to review it, the board needs to review it, and then the project started. So just another feature where I can manage and track the projects that the community is doing in this particular year. Like look here, irrigation system. It's in committee review right now. They're looking at the proposals and they're saying, okay, do we need to get other proposals? Do we feel good about it? So this is a real good feature that I think is helping HOAs have better visibility into the activity. Because really what happens is, you decide how much you want to set aside. And what it doesn't always tell you is how's the money coming in and out. So that's the living component. Yeah, you had a question?
Um, you mentioned RFP.
Uh-huh.
Is that something where you've created an RFP, or is it and you're inputting it as an RFP in here, or is this do more having to do with generating RFPs?
Yeah, good question. So more than likely, and it depends on what we're talking about. Many management companies or property managers or facilities people, they can put an easy RFP together. Sometimes it's just request for proposal is, hey Bill, we need you to submit a proposal to do our irrigation repair. Other times, if it's a larger project, you might be hiring an engineer, an architect to put together actually construction documents and a request for proposal that you send it out formally. But at the end of the day, whether it's very complicated or it's very simple, you want to be able to track where are we in the workflow of things that need to be done in our community. And that's where we've said this projects component is gangbusters. They love it because it's not very difficult. I just go for my component, I click project, I set up a project, and I come in here with, the irrigation. I see here, what are we talking about? Well, it's this area here. I can drag the actual proposals and put it right in here with it. So I have at all times, I remember where it is. And then I
What
can also go ahead.
also you mentioned things go to a committee for review. You can put the board motions and votes
That's right.
in here.
That's right. So if you look here, board approval, I come to this tab. I might put in here, board approved a not to exceed amount. Um, Motion carried 6-3.
Could you put a
I
link? Could you put a link to the
Yep,
minutes?
sure can. I can add attachments right here. I could
Mhm.
actually just put the minutes to it. I could put any information. That's one of the things. This is a repository. Having managed properties for 18 years and taken over properties where a previous management company was there, maybe a previous property manager was there, and I'm asked the question, where is this information? Well, it was on the SharePoint, it was on their hard drive, it was on their Dropbox, it was on their OneDrive. I'm just like, where does it live? So you can keep it in the place that's maybe required by the management company or required for someone else. But as a board member and as a homeowner, I want to retain my information. I want to make sure that it's staying with the property and with the component. And this, once again, just better visibility and how to make decisions. And the other thing I like about this is that I got my replacement cost. This is $74,000. Now I get to the point where I've sent it out to bid. I got my bids back, and the reserve specialist said it was 74, and lo and behold, it came in at 82. Well, how did that happen? And so, as easy as can be, I change that 74 to the approved contract amount. I can put right in here is 82. I can come down here and I can put the approved scope of work. I can add right here scope of work. What was the contract amount? Who approved it? The board approved it on what date? And I can put the contract in here. And it
Ah,
all stays with the component and with this project. Even I can do progress payments. If I know that this project's going to be a 4 month project and it's going to have a down payment and three different installments, I can keep track of that right in here, and it just itemizes each one of those payments. Boards want to have that level of information and transparency. And management companies, because I worked as a management company for 18 years, we struggle at times to give that level of information. Why? Because we don't have the resources and tools like this that make it easy for you. So that's the projects part. Another
mhm.
thing is the maintenance part. This right here is, the questions asked. How are we doing our fiduciary responsibility to preserve and maintain the property? One of the things you need to do is take care of it. Preventative maintenance. Try to extend the useful life. If you're not maintaining it or performing routine maintenance, then if it had a 10-year useful life and it's only lasting 7 years, you ask the question why. And so this gives you, an accountability tool to make sure that those key components of your property, that the manager or the contractor or someone is taking care of it on a routine, regular basis so that we can get its useful life or extend it. And then just looking into it, I say here's my task name as taking care of the chiller. I can click on this and say I need to fill it, clean it, inspect it. Who's it assigned to? I'm going to assign it to Lowell. When's that start? Is it reoccurring or one time? And then you just see down here the record. And at a glance, this is something I can print off and give to the board on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis. The homeowners are privy to this because I print off a report and show them that we're actually taking care of your property. And that goes a long ways. And then just a couple of reports. As I said, we've created the world's first one-page, get in here, get this out of the
Dashboard.
way, a one-page reserve study. This is
Mhm.
one page. This goes into your board packet so that you can use this to tell the story, to give pertinent information. Another thing is we do anticipate expenditures. At a glance, I can see what's happening at 25, 26, 27, 28. Just gives me visibility into what's in the near term. Print this off in a PDF, put it in the board packet, and it's just, once again, it's transparency that helps board members really give confidence to the community that we're taking care of the property. And then the final thing I'll just do is running scenarios, what if scenarios. This is an example here where your current budget shows that you're putting $475,000 a year into reserves. That's $113 per month per homeowner. Are we solvent? No, actually, at that rate, we're going to actually dip below negative, go into the negative in 2046. And we believe that in the next 5 years, 50% of properties will run cash negative for deferred maintenance, lack of appropriate threshold funding. So this gives me the ability to say, okay, maybe we want a minimum threshold. What does that look like? That minimum threshold is going to be $528,000 contribution, and it's going to be $125 per month per homeowner. The ability for boards and management companies to just click the button and run that scenario is priceless. It's given them the ability to make real-time, quick decisions that ultimately the homeowners want to know how's it going to impact me. And then just the ability to store all your files, all your contracts, all your documents. It's also got a photo register where you can have every photo of around the property. And then ultimately it's who's done what by when. What's the activity that's been done in here? I can always go and see that on 411, Mike Dee changed the useful life from 1 to 0 on the concrete floor. So it gives me that institutional knowledge. Well, Daniel, that's it. I know I flew fast, I flew high, but we're super excited about this cloud-based platform that is helping boards make better decisions.
Wow, this has been an incredible look at your platform here and how it can help folks. And the one question you sort of talked about is that you have your own reserve specialist. Do you
Yep.
have a way to allow other reserve specialists to have their reserve studies be put into this system?
Yeah, great question. So you've got level one, level two. Level one is you're starting from scratch. So you're coming out and identifying all the components. Level two is we're taking an existing reserve study, whether it's ours or someone else's, and we're actually coming on site and we're confirming the condition, the quantities. Level three is a financial update where you're not coming on site. So to answer your question, if we come and we're working with a property that's already had a reserve study done by maybe Reserve Advisors or Miller Dotson, we say
Hmm.
we like our study. We just paid for it last year. We don't think we need a new one. So we want to use your platform. So we'll
Yep.
take that reserve study, we'll digitize it, we'll put all that information into the software, and then you can start using it. So
Great.
yes, we do that. We do that quite a bit.
Wonderful. So to sort of wrap it up, why don't you say again who you guys are, how to reach out to you, um, and anything else that you think you want to do to tell folks about how to take advantage of your services.
Yeah, so Daniel, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate our partnership with CAI across the nation. We're in many chapters. We're Smart Property, been around for 7 years. I believe we're revolutionizing how you do financial and asset management in the HOA industry, and it's been needed. And so you can get a hold of us at smartproperty.com. You can get a hold of me at Mike at smartproperty.com. You can go onto our website and fill out information to have us do a demo.
Hmm.
We'll do a virtual demo. Usually it lasts about 30 minutes. You can have managers, board members, homeowners. We'll even do town hall meetings where we'll walk you through the platform or answer any questions you have. And then in terms of a proposal, you just ask us for a proposal. We typically need to know how many components you have, some of the complexity of your property, and we can push a proposal out in 2 to 3 days. It usually takes us about 8 to 10 weeks from concept to completion, from start to finish. From the moment you say we want one, for us to come out and inspect, get everything uploaded, train you, we can do that within 8 to 10 weeks. So we love to have your business, and we are excited about what's happening in West Virginia.
Well, thank you, and hope to see you guys as members of the newly forming West Virginia State Chapter. And I want to again thank you, Mike, for spending the time to go over this, of doing the demo, and providing what seems to be a very novel and forward-thinking solution
Yes.
for HOAs and condo boards. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure, Daniel. Best of luck to you.